Okay, so we're going to change subject into more how the muscle attached to the skeletal system. Muscle almost always never work alone. They work in groups. Yeah. So, and what we're going to do is describe the grouping, a bit of the terms that it comes to, and also the logic behind that. We are going to use exercise band to describe where muscle attached to. Yeah, and you will see that we use a lot of these exercise band for learning to just show roughly where muscles are. We're going to start with two muscles. Let me take that. Okay. So this is going to be an imaginary muscles. There might be a real muscle there, but I don't want you to think about name. I want you to think about an example that through this example you can learn any other muscle. Okay? So let's say that in front of the shoulder you have two muscles. One is relatively stronger and the other one is a bit weaker. To the one, and both of them are doing the same movement. Now, when they contract, they will contract together and will create this movement. Doesn't matter how we call this movement now. To the strongest muscle, we will call a prime mover. Is the prime muscle that moves it. To the second muscle, we'll call synergist. Synergist basically is a helper. Yeah? Now, why do you think the body would have two muscles who do the same thing?
In case one stop working?
Yep. So if one muscle would stop working, you have the other one. Yeah? Next one is an opposite muscle. Opposite muscle would when it contracts, it would do the opposite of what the synergist and prime mover do. Yeah? And this muscle will be called antagonist. Now, it's a bit like the egg of the chicken. So these two groups antagonist to each other. So if that muscle does that, the antagonist are those two. But if you look at this one, so the antagonist is the black one. Yeah? So it depends which one you refer. The second one, the opposite one, is the antagonist. Can you now, while you're standing, think in your body about where this happened when you have antagonist and prime mover? Can you do this movement and try to think about and while you're doing it? Yeah? Good? Yeah? So it happens in the elbow, right? So you can do that movement, and there is the muscle that does the opposite. You can do it in the knee, you can do it in the hip, even you can do it this way. Yeah? So it's one movement goes that way. Let's try to do it in the hip, okay? So in the hip, two of the muscles will do that. In the other muscle, the antagonist will be on the opposite direction. Yeah? Now, do you remember we talked about stretching? Yeah? So when you contract the prime mover, what do you think would happen to the antagonist?
Stretch.
It will stretch. Yes? So we kind of close a circle of what stretching is. So you need the antagonist muscle to contract in order to stretch a muscle. Yeah? Good. Now let's think about other muscle. Fixator. Certain muscles, they are not contracting to move the muscle, the bone, the joint. They're more contracting to stabilize that. For example, there are a group of muscles around the shoulder that their particular muscles are more to stabilize the shoulder joint. So there would be a group of muscle that will move the shoulder joint, and a group of muscle that once this moved, stabilize that. Yeah? Why? Because it works better that there is a group that moves and a group that stabilizes that. So when you come into this idea of muscles not only moving but stabilizing joint, there is a particular type of muscle that does that. I think, oh yes, okay. The next one, next time, maybe actually we can close this video, stop this video.